For me to do that job at 100%, to be able to run in and sacrifice myself right now for you, I couldn't have anything tie me down. And unfortunately for me, the only way I knew how to do that was to set up walls. I'm not going to Home Depot, I'm not getting any other job, and if you don't want to fucking be here, leave. Go and take the kids, fucking go. Do it before I deploy, I don't care. And it wasn't until I went down to Mexico and did some serious therapy that I really realized what the ego death was. Even though my entire world back home was just in a death spiral, it didn't matter. I just wanted to go home and wrap my arms around my old lady and my kids and just tell them I'm sorry. And I knew I'd never have the opportunity.
Welcome back to the Mulligan Brothers podcast, and today we have a clip from our interview with DJ Shipley. So many of you know him from SEAL Team 6 and the amazing work that he's done around the world, sharing his message and his wisdom and some of those stories. And here's another exclusive video from DJ Shipley. Today's episode, as always, is sponsored by Huel. I'll talk about these a little bit more later on in the video, but this is the Huel Black Edition that I have been using for the past 3 months now. I think that Huel's had Black Edition ready to drinks out, and it's an absolute game changer. So find out more with a link down below. Let's dive into the video. I want to include in the documentary, like, I think the journey of the ego death and, like, you know, you doing that. But to do that, I wanted to give the context of the ego. And I'm wondering if you could go back to when you were in, you know, really in the depth of that ego, if you could speak from it as if you know, you were in that place. Like, how did you speak about yourself? Like, you know, what was your self-talk in that moment when you had that ego?
When I was still in?
Yeah, when you were still in, yeah. So not now, just for the cameras, just for awareness, like, this isn't who DJ is today, but like back then, like, how would you, you know, speak of yourself or, yeah, talk to who you were?
Typically humble around the guys, and when you come home, you're the real deal. Like, I'm the fucking reason we're all here. I am. That job, as much as you resent it, is the only reason you're sitting on that couch. Without them, there are no bills to pay. That creates stability for this whole family. And if I don't do it, what are we doing? I'm not going to Home Depot. I'm not getting any other job. And if you don't want to fucking be here, leave. Go and take the kids, fucking go. Do it before I deploy. I don't care. And I'd say it just like that. If you don't like the way this fucking train is going, you can jump off anytime, honey. I'm not slowing down for you. And that was really the ego. Is I had to build up these walls, and I had to build up that in my mind so I could be that Neil McCauley from Heat. I'll walk the fuck away from you right now, as much as I love you. And a lot of that is I'd never really show it. I'd show it in the honeymoon stage, and then I saw the reality, and I was like, I can't do that. Because there are times in that career path where you have to be ready to self-sacrifice. And it is a very hard thing to do when you were thinking about your wife and kids. So that is what the name of the game was. I am not thinking about you. And I tell them that now. There wasn't a singular time that I allowed them to go into my conscious thought riding on a helicopter on the way into the target. Never. I would not allow them. I didn't call them before I left. I usually didn't call them after I got home. They weren't on the forefront of my mind. And if we're being honest, if you looked at all my photos, you won't see pictures of them hanging up inside my room. I try to keep that out of sight, out of mind. And I know that sounds fucked up for me because I do love them. And hindsight being 2020, I would have left for them. But at the moment, I wouldn't have. If you would have asked me now, if I was still in, she's like, I need for you to retire, I would have retired. Knowing what I know now. Back then, I would have told her to pack her shit. And that's really what it took. Like, for me to do that job at 100%, to be able to run in and sacrifice myself right now for you, I couldn't have anything tie me down. And unfortunately for me, the only way I knew how to do that was to set up walls. Set up walls and little pillars they just couldn't get through. And I'd come to the door spitting venom out of my face just to keep them away from me. I'm leaving on a trip. Or I'd come home from a long trip, we'd get into a blowout. I'd come home pissed off about something. Like, why the fuck did I even come home for this? What the fuck am I even doing here? Why are you still here? Why haven't you fucking left me yet? I'd say things like that. Because in the back of my mind, I thought if she left, it would give me full reign to do whatever I wanted to do. Internally, it's not what I wanted. I wanted her to accept me. I wanted her to understand what I'm going through, but I didn't have the ability to say it. I didn't have the ability to sit down and tell her, like, I'm scared shitless. I'm scared shitless I'm going to lose my position in this community. I'm scared I'm going to die overseas and make you a fucking 2-time widow. There's a lot of pressure on me, man. Like, I don't know how to compartmentalize it. I don't know how to push through this. The only thing I know how to do is do this job. And right now you're drawing bandwidth that I can't reproduce any other place. I don't know what else you want me to do. It's not a fucking basketball game. I can't take an off season. Like, I'm doing this same thing as many times as humanly possible until I get killed or get kicked out of this place. What do you want me to do? And it was so easy to justify. Like, guys that get killed, I'm playing for keeps, man. Playing for keeps. You sure you want me to take a 2-week fucking vacation for Christmas? I really don't want to take one. And that's a lot of what we did. We didn't take vacations. We didn't take summer vacations. We didn't take time off. I never made time to do it because I didn't think it was worth it, because it didn't have any benefit in me. At least I didn't see it at the time. It was so much easier just to, nope, we're good. I need to focus on this. And sometimes doing nothing is doing everything. Like, what do you want to do tonight? Nothing. I want to sit here and watch that TV, and I don't want you to talk to me. I'm just trying to reset my balance. And it's a hard thing for a wife to hear, man, because they do not want to hear it. They don't understand. As much as they say they do, they don't. And I think now that I'm out, that's a lot of the feedback I get. We get more calls from wives than anything else. Thank you so much for saying that, because now I understand my husband. Yeah. I'm not the greatest dude that's ever lived, clearly. But if you take me to the core and reproduce me like 10,000 times, I'm the majority of what your husband is. Yes, damn. Is he better than me? Is he more well? Sure. But at the core, the guy who's an idealist who really, really loves that job, whatever that job is, he's like me. He is setting up walls. He is trying to push you away because he's trying to focus on that right now, and he doesn't know because he doesn't have a dial. He's only got a switch. It's a hard thing, man. When you leave it, now you sacrifice the family, you sacrifice relationship with the kids, and as we talked about today, like my whole focus now is I'm just trying to rewrite positives on top of negatives. Anytime I have a negative interaction, I try to overlay a positive on top of it. And I think the ego death gave me that. It gave me the ability to see for what it is in the time and place that it is, and show remorse. Like, oh, fuck, man, I didn't mean to say that, dude. I did mean to say that. I didn't mean to say it like that. And here's why. And I'll retract it. I'll retract it really quick. But a lot of the times, I'd never do that before. I'd hammer down. Nope, that's it. And it's not a superpower to do that. It's not. To be able to show a little bit of empathy and show a little compassion to people, it goes a lot further. And we had this conversation when I was in with a guy about being able to crush people, crush your enemies, and, physically being able to control the situation. And one of the guys had one, he goes, it's one thing to be able to crush everybody. It's one thing to be able to control every situation physically. It's another to be able to control it and not let them know you can control it. I can sit back and I can let you do or say whatever you want to, and I'm not going to perceive it positively or negatively. I know that I can control the outcome of this whenever I want to. That's a superpower. I'm going to hide in the white noise and I'll just sit here, and then whenever I want to, I'll change it. I wish I would have had that optic back then. I wish I would have had the optic to sit back and go, I don't need to jump up. I don't need to shout. I don't need to flex. I don't need to do any of this. I don't need to do that at all. Gotta have a dial though. It's very hard to develop.
I hope you're enjoying the highlights so far. Today's video was sponsored by Huel as always. This is the Huel Black Edition. I've been using this for the past few months now. Huel Black Edition has just been released in the US and it is amazing. It has 35 grams of protein. It's ready to drink. It's got 26 vitamins and minerals and slow release carbs, meaning that you can fuel your performance or your day-to-day life with this. Find out more with the link in the description. I mean, that is the really, really interesting thing, especially to me. Like, that's what I really want to hear about.
Do you have more questions on the ego?
Yeah, the death of the ego, I think is the biggest one.
So because I compartmentalized my whole family the whole time I was in, I was never homesick. We do 6-month deployments, 4-month, 5-month, whatever it's going to be. I'd gone for 30 days, jump trips and everything else. Never homesick. Never think about it, really. And it's not a good thing or bad. It doesn't mean I didn't love my wife, love my kids. I did, obviously. But I didn't want them to interfere with my process and whatever I was going through. Like, I needed to be an individual right now. I can't be a family guy because my family ain't here. There's no reason for me to give you any bandwidth right now when I'm trying to jump out of this airplane. Like, I need to focus on this. And a lot of that came with living life like you were single and living alternate lives. And that's a lot of the egos. I can't be the person I want to be with you right now. So whenever I'm not with you, I'll be whoever I want to be. And I'd adopt these different lives. I'd go out to Arizona and I'd live the professional skydiver life and just had a whole different group of friends and demographics and different speech and different clothes I'd wear. And different. I would just be different whenever I wanted to be. And you finally get to a point where you start to lose who you really are. And then you all start to morph together. And before you know it, like you're combining multiple worlds into one. And the only thing I do know is, well, if I don't like it, I'll slam the wall. If I don't like this, I'll hammer down, I'll just leave. Oh, you don't like it? I'll be gone for 10 days. See you when I get back. And I just bolt. When that's no longer an option, when that identity has kind of consumed you, you really lose sight of who you really were and why you really started it. And now it wasn't so much about the end state anymore. It was about just feeding my own ego. Like, well, I have to pep talk myself. I have to tell myself I'm worthy of all this. I have to tell myself the sun rises and sets on me. And the only thing that really matters is me and my career and all the things I want to do. In reality, it's not the case. But when you're in the moment, you don't realize what you're doing. You don't realize what you're saying or the ramifications, the impact they have on others. You just don't see it for what it is. And it wasn't until I went down to Mexico and did some serious therapy, taking some psychedelics, that I really realized what the ego death was. And I know because that was the first time I'd ever been homesick. When I woke up from Ibogaine that first day, I would have cut my arm off to be home. I've never wanted to teleport back home so bad in my whole life, ever. I've never wanted to be home that bad, even though my entire world back home was just in a death spiral. It didn't matter. I just wanted to go home and wrap my arms around my old lady and my kids and just tell them I'm sorry. And I knew I'd never have the opportunity. Like, that was really jamming me up. And then we did 5-MeO-DMT. That is the true ego death. So I think the way I went through it is that Ibogaine confirmed everything I'd ever done in my whole life to try to achieve this level. And that level was where my ego was setting. Everything I've ever done justified this person I've turned myself into. How I look physically, how I speak, how I dress, however, it's all purpose built. And I did all of that because I thought I needed to be that person. And then when you smoke that 5-MeO-DMT, things get very, very different because it shows you how small you are in reality. And you realize that you don't matter. You don't matter at all. My contribution to the war effort means nothing. My contribution to society means nothing because the majority of it was built on hate, discontent. And now the whole thing's just turned to negative. It's like I never wanted it to be. I only wanted to be positive. I'm happy by nature. Like, how did I end up like this? How did I end up like this? Just having like this self-reflection, like, and how the fuck did I end up like this, dude? And then you're sitting around this room with all these dudes who you looked up to your whole life, and they're saying the same thing to you. I'm like, dude, I sit in that fucking guest room with that pistol between my legs, trying to figure out how I'm going to shoot myself to not ruin the fucking ceiling for months, dude. Months. And none of you said anything to me? Never? Out of all the conversations we had, all the times we've been deployed, all the times we sit on 8-hour fucking road trips, just you and me, you've never said that to me? How? How the fuck were you going to let me lay back there and die? How? It's like, I was fucking pissed, dude. Like, if you knew how close I came to shoot myself back there, you would have fucking told me, man. Like, that's a realization. Like, if you don't ask and you don't tell anybody what you're going on, no one's going to know. If you do not give this thing a voice, you'll just end up like another statistic back there. Another bloody spot on the fucking ceiling. Somebody in here cleaning up the carpet, selling the house. Like, that's how you end up. That's how your story ends. If you don't say it, if you don't give it a voice, if you're not just open and honest. And that's what I did. I went down there. I smoked that shit and I fell back. I did it 5 or 6 times. I did it a bunch. And it wasn't until I felt myself die. And that was the realization I had, is I was so depressed. I smoked the initial bit and I felt that it was right on the cusp, and I was still holding on to it. I didn't want to feel it go because it feels like you're dying. It's the strangest thing. And the last attempt I had, a doctor came over and he put his hand on me. He's like, you got to let it go, man. You got to let it go. And I gave myself a little pep talk and I went, why don't you just stop being a pussy and just kill yourself right now in front of all these fucking people? And I smoked that last one with the intent to kill myself. I lit that thing up and I inhaled that and I imagined that all the smoke was purple. And I was like, I'm going to paint the entire inside of every inch of my lungs with this purple poison, and I'm going to hold it as long as possible. And when I exhale it, I'm going to try to exhale my lungs out of my throat. I'm going to try to kill myself right now in front of these people. And in my mind, that would have been easier than going back home and facing music. And I sat there Indian style in that bed in Mexico, and I was like, fuck it. Had the doctor there, had all the nurses, there's nobody else around, just me solo, and I smoked that thing as hard as I possibly could. And when I hit my head to that pillow, everything in my world shattered. It literally feels like you explode. And if you don't try to control it and you just throw your arms out and let it take you, it'll kill you. And it was the most liberating feeling of my entire life. I felt so insignificant on the planet that when I came back to it, everything was in alignment. Everything I'd ever done had been forgiven. Every past indiscretion, every ounce of guilt, judgment, resentment I've ever held for anybody was gone in an instant, and none of it mattered. None of it. And it was crystal clear in my mind. The only thing that did matter were the people that I wanted to associate with. The only thing I truly give a shit at all is my wife, my 2 kids. That's it. Nothing else matters. And now I have to go back and figure out how I'm going to solve this. It's like, I don't know if it can be solved. I think when I pull back this thread and she sees what I've really been doing, how bad I've really gotten, I don't think she'll take me back. And that was the scariest moment. It's like, now that I've hit this newfound me with this clarity and this sobriety and this different outlook on life, will it even be accepted? That's what was terrifying. All this work I've done, as far as I've come, as good as I feel, as sober as I am, it's all for nothing now. You're going to have to go and face the music now. And that was the hardest thing for me. But that ego death from where I thought I was to where I ended up, you'd have to do it to know. You would. But from who I was 24 hours prior to that guy, couldn't be farther apart. My wife will tell you, when I walked on the back of that truck, that's the very first thing she did. She pulled off my sunglasses and she pulled them off and started bawling. My eyes were jet black, dude. I mean, I had before and after pictures somewhere. I mean, they were black. And that's what everybody says. You lose all the color in your eyes. You lose all the consistency. You don't focus your eyes anymore. You just walk around with this blank stare. Like, you just don't care. You look like old timers at a nursing home, just going through life, going through the motions. When I came off that thing, she pulled my glasses off. Crystal clear. I could see everything and she knew it. She's like, oh my God. She threw her arms around my neck and we just cried for 2 hours on the back of that truck. And from that moment on, that has been the closest we've ever been, even since the honeymoon stage, even since dating. We've never been as tight as we are now because we've been through so much together. I think that's the strength we have now, is there's nothing else to go through. We've gone through everything. Everything that we could have gone through, we've already gone through and we've made it through. Like, now we're the best we've ever been. I'm so thankful for it now. But it was not easy. It was not fun.